Hello, everybody, and welcome to Bridging the Customer Experience Gap. We're excited to have you with us as we dive into our Spring 2019 launch. We've got some very exciting stuff to show you this morning, this afternoon, this evening, wherever you're listening in from. Before we get into that, though, I just want to point out some key features of GoToWebinar and show you how you can interact with us a little bit. First, we will be having a question and answer session at the end. So at any point during the presentation, if you have a question, go ahead and type it into the questions tab on your control panel, and we'll get to as many of those as we can at the end. Then also, you'll see on your control panel, you have another tab for handouts. We have two things for you today. First, we have the PDF of the slide deck for this presentation, so you can take that with you. And we also have a general data sheet about our treasure data that you can get just some more general information. So now, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our presenter. She is Mickey Collard, who is our Senior Product Marketing Manager, who's going to be walking you through all these fun new features.
Great.
Hey, Mickey.
Hello. Thanks so much to everybody for joining us today for the Treasure Data Spring 19 launch, Bridging the Customer Experience Gap. We have a full agenda. We'll talk a little bit maybe about 10 minutes or so on why we think teams should unite for improved customers' experiences. We'll go through some gaps that customers kind of fall into a little bit when they try and do customer experience transformation. And then we'll give you the latest treasure data capabilities that will help bring your teams back together again and bridge those gaps. My product manager is here today on the line to answer any questions for the audience, and we'll get a demonstration of our new policy-based permissions from our product manager, Mukesh. And then, of course, we'll take all of your questions at the end of the presentation. So what happens with companies when they start a customer experience transformation? I think one of the things that people want to point out to folks is that, there's a lot of good reasons. There's a lot of good reasons that you want to stay customer focused, that you want to get better at customer experiences. You can see a bunch of these statistics on the screen here that were pulled from a recent Vance and Bourne report. They'll tell you things about 9 out of 10, 88% of folks out there see customer experience journeys as being so critical and important for an organization's strategic priorities. But I think we all know that there's something that's just a little bit more fundamental, something that we all understand about customer experience. And that is that when you put your customer at the center of your organization, it will help you accelerate your growth. And I think we know this sort of intuitively, that when we deliver products and services to our customers and they're great and they have fantastic experiences, they'll buy those products again from you. They'll be more apt to buy different products and services from you and give you fantastic feedback about those things, accelerating your ability to bring new products to market. And when you get their loyalty, they become advocates for you, right? And they go out into the world and they write fantastic reviews. They become part of your reference programs. And they do the work of increasing the awareness for your company for you. So we all understand this virtuous cycle of customer experience. So I don't think I need to convince anybody that it's important. So when we see our customers going out there, putting their customers at the center of their products and services and taking on these customer experience transformations, that does tend to show some gaps, right? So there'll be gaps in the process of trying to figure out where you are today and where you want to go with your customer's experience in the future. The first big gap that I'll point out is the perception gap. Now, the statistic that you're looking here on the screen is one that has been, it's been talked about for a long time. This comes from a Bain study on customer experience back in 2005. And to today, bloggers are still writing about it. Analysts are still talking about it. It probably echoes in your own boardrooms within your companies. The fact that we want to put forward fantastic experiences and what we think that we're doing to provide those fantastic experiences, 80% of the time, we think we're doing that. If we go to ask our customers, only 8% of them say they actually receive superior experiences. Now, I think there's two very good reasons why this statistic is going to be kind of evergreen, no matter what the numbers really are at the end of the day. And one of them is the fact that customers' expectations are changing all the time. So your customer's expectation is going to change with their next best experience. And that doesn't even have to be with a competitor of yours, right? And the other fact is that their experiences are spread across our organization. So we don't always present just one face to the customer. So that's why I think this comparison, this gap will kind of always exist, and it's always going to be a moving target for your company. Now, another gap that people will start to see, and I sort of pointed to this earlier, was that generally, because you have different organizations that face the customer, sometimes those organizations become siloed. What you can know and understand about that customer, sometimes there's walls in between an entire customer's experience. McKinsey kind of points to this very plainly and does a good job of sort of reconciling this idea that really it's about the customer's journey, not just the touch points within your customer-facing organizations. That's really going to determine how they feel about the experience that they're getting. And so the knowledge gap that I'm pointing to is what any particular organization can know about that customer at a given point in time. So for instance, if I order something online, order a special configuration, go to call your support organization and they don't even know what product I have, they don't know that I've bought that add-on that needs a specific configuration, well, they're already behind the eight ball, really, when it comes to serving me as a customer. And there's a real risk in there. So that led me to think, well, what other gaps could possibly be surfacing? And honestly, it's about taking that next step and closing the responsibility gap. And people have been talking about this for a while, and there are very specific customer experience practitioners out there that live within organizations. A recent study by Forrester was done to go out and poll these customer experience professionals. And one of the survey questions was really interesting about where they report into, what's their organizational structure look like. And about a third of them responded that they reported in through the marketing organization. And I thought, okay, well, that was interesting. Let me see if I can find some other information that might triangulate on this idea a little bit. And I went out and found this Deloitte study, the top 3 factors that are actually driving marketing success. And I thought that top factor fit very, very well with this idea that customer experience professionals are reporting into marketing, because that number 1 factor is knowing how to use customer data and analytics. And the third is being the voice of the customer at the leadership table. So we think it's a really good time to elevate the marketing organization in context of these customer experience transformations. And when you think about it, marketing plays quite easily across the entire customer experience value chain, from customer acquisition to customer loyalty. And not to say that there aren't other organizations out there that contribute quite a bit, but we know that marketing has their place in this entire value chain. So here at Arm Treasure Data, we want to help our customers, our marketing customers, our CMOs, build a bridge and unite their teams, build a bridge to close some of these gaps, And we think one of the most vital ways in doing this is to build that foundation of a customer journey. So what you're looking at here is actually a slide that was presented by one of our customers, the largest distributor of Isuzu trucks in Thailand. And they used Treasure Data to do just that, to figure out exactly what their customers' online journeys were all about. After discovering that basically 80% of the population out there, or the people that were engaging with them, wanted to engage with them online. And so they were able to track all the ways that they were engaging through awareness all the way out to purchase with the help of Treasure Data. And just to kind of set the stage, and I just wanted to make sure that we're all kind of understanding and have a shared notion of what a CDP looks like in action. It really is more than just taking in customer data, unifying it for the sake of activation through one specific channel, say for instance through your ad network. It really is a multi-channel experience. It allows you to activate across and run campaigns on your website, through email, through those social networks, as well as the ad networks in the open web. All right. Now I wanted to get into a little bit of our launch highlights and how we're helping bridge the gap between customer experience professionals for effective customer engagement. We have 3 highlights of this launch. We have our unified application, where we've taken a couple applications that we used to provide to our customers and put them into one package. We have a brand new user interface that we'll give you a look at today. And then we wanted to let you know that we're also uniting teams across the globe, and we're expanding our services regionally, and we're building a new data center out in the EU and standing up our services out there. And then we also have some featured capabilities that we'll introduce you to. We'll have our policy-based permissions going into public beta here within the next quarter. We've implemented a brand new dashboard as part of our Audience Studio. And then we're also enabling our mobile SDK to bring in more mobile streaming events from all of your mobile applications. So diving right in, just to kind of give a point of reference, back when we started with our data platform, 2011, a lot of our customers were coming through and collecting customer data to kind of do master data management around a customer profile. And at that time, we gave them fantastic tools for integration, for data management, data pipelining, and they started building out profiles for their marketing, their internal marketing customers. When we heard that a lot of our customers led this charge well earlier than the CDP, category came into being, we developed a set of tools that would help marketers utilize those profiles, look at each customer individually on a profile screen, be able to segment those profiles and precisely target customers. But these two things were separated, right? And so recently we've taken on the task of making sure that it's now one integrated application, one customer data platform for everybody in your organization. So alongside all the great tools and functionalities that our data analysts use, the data workbench, we have our integrations hub right alongside our Audience Studio as well for our marketers. So just one interface that we've improved for usability and personal productivity. So the tool looks very different. We've rolled this out to all of our customers. So this is just an example of the space that we've created for personal productivity on our Segments tab. You'll see here we've got a way that you can navigate through folders, through each individual segment, create those segments basically all on one screen, provide you enough space, in this case, to create very long folder names, be able to see everything that you're doing, and then be able to collapse that all back to give you the widest view of the screen in the area that we believe that our users need to be productive within the tool. Again, I pointed out that we are serving our customers globally. We're deploying Arm Treasure Data Services on AWS in Germany. This is to serve our European customers. Right now, we are kicking the tires around security. We're doing this with a marquee beta customer out there, and we are on track for general availability for these services out in the EU in the upcoming quarter. Next, we'll introduce our policy-based permissions. We're giving our users kind of very flexible administration for setting permissions across all of the features that I introduced before for kind of that next level of control. So this will give administrators easier control over providing access to things like workflows, master segments, segment folders. We're not only hoping to improve productivity and collaboration for all these groups that need to access data in different ways, but also to enable greater compliance for more stringent privacy regulations, because we understand that environment is changing very rapidly. And just to kind of give you an overview of what these policies look like. So previously, you'd be able to set any sort of permission to anything that you wanted on a user basis. But as you gather more users, right, as more people adopt the customer data platform, it becomes a little unwieldy. You need to be able to have a nice, flexible way of delivering permissions to users. And so we've enabled policies kind of as an intermediary step, but that's where you start. You would set up a policy for, say, marketers access or a policy for analyst access. You would give them permissions to different features within the CDP. In this case, we're enabling features for workflow and audience studio. And then there's very specific permissions that you give for those features. And then you assign those policies to different users of the customer data platform. So you see in this example, Jen gets access to both the analyst access policy and the marketer's access policy, while Sam only gets access to the marketer's policy. So it's a very flexible way to provide permissions. This is just sort of one example of the granularity at which you can set these permissions. So in this case, we're setting permissions for folders and master segments, right? Those audiences that you can create from your profiles. So I have a European master segment and an American master segment that groups people by region. And then within those regions, you can set up granular access to very specific folders that they can work in. So say in Europe, you have an agency that you're working with. Well, you can set up that agency with permissions to use those profiles to be able to create their own segments within that folder, and then have an internal folder for folks within your own marketing team, right? And you can set that up on other master segments on a regional basis. The permissions are very simple in terms of being able to allow people to do everything or just look at the folder, understand what segments are there. But this is just one configuration. So I do want to point out that it depends on what your organization needs. So you can set up these permissions by region, by role, by organization, however you see fit. And this is just kind of what it looks like on the screen. You'll see here that there's a master segment, that the folders that have been created can be then added for very specific permissions, view, and full control. And then Mukesh is going to give us an introduction to this and a demo of this at the end of the presentation. And we're also improving our Audience Studio. We've added a new screen. So this screen will default when you kind of click into the Audience Studio for the first time, and you can select a master segment to take a look at the overall totals and trends of that segment, how profiles are moving in and out. And this is to give visibility into those segment operations for creating segments, for maintaining them, for activating them. And this is used for everybody. Anybody who has access to the Audience Studio, anybody who needs to create those master segments, anybody that needs to use those master segments will have access to this. And it really provides an increased opportunity to communicate about those segmentation trends and to coordinate. So just sort of to give you an example, say I'm on the IT side of the house, I'm a business analyst, and I help to create those audience so that my marketers have self-service access to all of the profiles within Treasure Data. So I want to know if that audience that we're targeting is growing or shrinking, or if I know that I have data pipelining in every single day and should expect a lot of new profiles to hit these master segments, then I want to make sure that there aren't any anomalies, right? So I want to be able to adjust the definition of data that's being collected to improve those profiles that are being used. And if I'm on the marketing side of the house, I'll want to use those dashboards specifically to actually compare trends of very similar segments that I've built within that master segment so that I can choose the best segment for any of the campaigns and increase my engagement. So we really are giving actionable insights for everybody across the team. And speaking of insights and delivering insights across the team, with our new mobile streaming events, I think we're really starting to fill out all the data that you need to collect from a mobile device. So say if you had marketers that were very interested in how their websites were performing on the mobile web out there, they want to gauge awareness, they want to engage or want to look at engagement, they can do that. If you're somebody that's developing applications within your organization, you might be more interested in what devices people are using out there, the kind of connectivity, the kind of OSs that they're using. And now with mobile streaming events, we can take in a whole load of information about mobile applications that you develop on these platforms, whether that be a gaming platform or your traditional mobile platforms, Android, iOS. And then allow those marketers to really start to analyze satisfaction, intent, the preferences of their customers out there. And this is just an example of some of the data that we can now get from the enhancements on our mobile SDK. You'll see them there under the app purchase events. I thought it was an interesting exercise. If you're a Target shopper, I love Target. I had their Cartwheel app, and I opened it up the other day and realized, oh, well, they're not supporting that Cartwheel app anymore. They want me to download a new Target shopping app where they've integrated those weekly circulars and coupons into it. And so I went through the process of installing it. I went through the process of signing in. I went through the process of clipping my coupons, and I actually loaded something up in my shopping cart right there on my mobile device. And then I thought about it for a second and ran to my friendly neighborhood product manager and said, this whole experience, could we track this whole experience? And the answer was yes. I was so happy. First of all, Target did a fantastic job of delivering the experience where I could just convert applications. But if you're going through that process yourself, being able to understand how people are getting through that process and making it easier is going to be a real boon for your business. And we're not stopping there on the Integrations Hub side. We're definitely developing more better applications for easy access to customer data. In this last quarter, we've come out with 10 new connectors, and I'm happy to say that we are in a POC right now to really accelerate and kind of double down on the amount of integrations that we're doing. So we're testing that out to deliver a framework for faster delivery of these connectors. We are now up to close to 130 of these connectors in about 15 different system categories. And then here is just a quick view on what's available today for these connectors. We have a couple that are in GA. We're currently in beta with our Snowflake Box and Tweet Insights connectors. And then we're doing a lot of great work. So definitely come back and see us again for another one of these webinars, and we'll give you maybe a little tour of what we're doing with the Crux integration and our data enrichment integrations with LiveRamp. And then, of course, Laura said you'll get a copy of this presentation, and that's attached.
Yep, just download it in the handout section.
And this is just kind of that summary slide that gives you an idea of what we've come out with in spring. So please do take a look. And with that, I'd like to prep us for a demonstration by Mukesh.
Sure.
And just full disclosure here, we did have Mukesh go ahead and record that click path. We've got a demo environment that this is running in, but this is brand new functionality. We are going to be going into public beta, but because of the shared demo environment, and we're all about live demos here, but because of that shared demo environment, we didn't want to shut it down for everybody else while we gave you a demonstration. So with that, I will turn it over to Mukesh to walk you through our recorded demonstration.
Sure. Thanks, Mickey. So when policy-based permissions feature is enabled in an account, administrators and account owners will get this capability to create policies, attach permissions to a policy, and then finally assign those policies to the users within their organization. In addition to that, they can anytime modify the permissions within a policy or even delete a policy at any time to remove the permissions. So let's walk through the steps on how admin would go about and create a policy. The first step would be to give a unique name for a policy. And once admin provides a unique name, they can provide an optional description, which they can always go back and refer if they want to. In this case, US test policy 4 is something I created, and then just give optional description. This policy is for consultants. The next logical step would be to attach permissions to this policy. Now, administrators and account owners have a choice to attach permissions under Data Workbench or Audience Studio, or they could attach permissions from either one or both of these features. It really depends on what their security policy is. Once they click the pencil icon under the Data Workbench, admin can then select the permissions that they want to attach to this particular policy. Click Save. And at this point, for this particular policy, under Audience Studio, there are a couple of options which I'm not going to select at this point. Now, once the policy is ready, the policy can be applied or assigned to one user or multiple users from the Applied To tab. At this point, all the permissions that were assigned or attached within the policy are assigned to the users effective immediately. At any point, admin can go ahead and modify the policies, as I mentioned earlier, and also delete a policy. So to delete a policy, admins can either use the icon, delete icon, or the menu item delete policy. And once the admin confirms the policy is deleted, all the permissions related to this policy are effectively removed from the user. Now, for this demo purposes, what I've created is a master segment called US Customers. And this master segment has a couple of folders created within it. We have default folder, US East, US West, and Test2. And then for the users, I've created 3 different users, John, Sam, and Jen. And then a couple of policies that are assigned to these users. Now, these policies, again, let's go ahead and check the policies that were assigned to Sam, who is an employee. And then in this case, the policy assigned to Sam is US Employees Marketing Policy. Now, at any time, admins can click the Show All Permissions link to view what permissions were assigned to this user. In this particular case, Sam has access to master segment US Customers, which is what is selected as a limited access under Audience Studio. And within this master segment, Sam has access to everything, meaning full control within this master segment, US Customers. I'll log in as Sam in the next step and then show that Sam has access to everything within the master segment US Customers. So log in as Sam, and as you can notice, Sam has access to US Customers master segment and also has access to all the folders within this master segment. Basically, Sam can do anything that is allowed within this master segment context. He can create a folder, delete a folder, create segments, delete segments, but only within this particular master segment context and nothing else. Now, I'm going to show for John. John is a consultant, and for John, the access permissions provided to him is only for a specific folder within the master segment US Customers. And this can be also checked by clicking the Show All Permissions link. As you can notice, John has limited access to US Customers master segment, and within this master segment, he is only limited to access US East folder with full control, meaning John can do anything within this folder, but nothing outside of it. So once I'm going to, now the next step is to go and check John's permissions. And as you can notice, John has access to US Customers master segment and nothing else in the Audience Studio in terms of other master segments that existed. And he has specific access to US East folder only within this master segment. As you will notice, while Sam has access to all the folders within this particular master segment, John only has access to US East folder within this master segment because of the permissions that John got via policies. Now, as an admin, let's say I want to assign US West permissions folder, US West policy, as well as the US West folder permissions to John. And the way to do it is modify the policy and assign US West policy to John so that John now has access to US East as well as US West folders within the master segment US Customers. Now, once this is done, log in again as John, and in this case, as you notice, John earlier had access to only one folder, but now since the permissions have changed and the new policy has been applied, John should have access to US West and US East folders within the US customers master segment. So at this point, John has access to both the folders because of the permissions assigned. Now let's say at a later point, admin decides to remove the permissions of US West folder and only allow US East folder to be accessed for John. All I have to do is remove that particular policy from the user and then log in again here as John. And this time, John should only have access to US East folder within the US customers master segment. So this is how admin can basically limit and control access not only to audiences, master segments, but also the folders within master segment. This concludes our demo here. Thank you all for watching. And over to me.
Great. Thank you so much, Mukesh. I appreciate it.
Sure.
And now we can open up for questions. Laura, do we have any questions on the line?
We have some coming in, so keep them coming if you have any more questions that occurred to you during this presentation. But before we get into this, I wanted to invite everybody to join us on Thursday for The Truth About Personalization. It's another webinar that we're doing. This one will be on Bright Talk. I have just put the link into the chat. You can also just go to Bright Talk and search Treasure Data, and you will find us. This is a webinar all about our new research that we've just done on personalization and what consumers are saying they actually like and don't like, and what the truth actually is. So please do join us for that on Thursday. Okay, so let's get to some questions. Again, if you have more, keep them coming on in. Okay, so here's a question. Karina, I think I'm going to toss this one to you. Are there additional granular permissions for Audience Studio coming out?
Yeah, so we are working on a few additional permissions specifically for Audience Studio. One of them is a segment lock permission that will allow users to lock segments to prevent further editing. So this is for when users are activating a segment and want to prevent that from being edited while it's live. We also have another permission coming up which will allow users to manage their activations.
Cool, awesome. And kind of right along with that, are there additional permissions for integrations? And Wonder, I think I'll send that your way.
Sure. Yeah, that's something we are actively looking at as well. We do want to give power to the admin so that they could they could control the users whether they want to whether they can syndicate certain data to certain connectors or not, and that's something we're deeply looking into and getting feedback from our customers and partners. So we welcome any feedbacks from anyone in the this channel also to help improve us. But yes, that's something that we are bringing in our market soon.
Great. Another question here. Fun. Okay. With the new in-app purchase data, can you use that in predictive modeling? Julie, you want to take that one?
Sure. So yes, you can. With our mobile SDK, you can now capture your customers' in-app purchase data, and we allow you to train and improve your predictive model on any set of data you have within Treasure Data.
Cool. Great. I think we have time for one more. I'm going to kick it back to Mickey. Right. I know you talked about this a little bit, but I think we want just a little more clarification. How can Treasure Data help us be compliant with GDPR and CCPA?
Right. That's a great question. So I think that probably draws across the lines of the fact that we are opening a new data center in the EU. We've paid close attention to what's happening with GDPR, specifically making sure that we are compliant as a processor for the sake of GDPR. But we also have very extensive security policies. We have line of sight to the new California protection regulations that are going into effect, and that we have somebody who is ultimately responsible at the end of the day. So we have some very strict administrative policies that we adhere to as well. Taking a look out at the landscape, at the regulatory landscape, working very closely with our counterparts in legal to ensure that we are not only compliant as a processor, but even as that processor for the sake of GDPR, we have to help our customers be compliant as well. So it is a shared responsibility. We take that responsibility very seriously. And if you're talking about the product itself, well, quite honestly, there really is no better way to model consent when you have your data consolidated in one place, right? For the sake of activating it in a privacy-enabled way. So there are a lot of people that aren't necessarily looking at a CDP for the sake of compliance, but realizing that it is a very, very strong tool for compliance.
Great, awesome. So with that, I think we'll wrap up. Please do contact us. That's Mickey's email right there on your screen if you have any further questions. Also, feel free to come to our website, check it out, request a custom demo if you are new to the Treasure Data family. And we will see you hopefully on Thursday for the truth about personalization. But other than that, have a great day, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.